Good morning, dear students. Previous class, we have been continuing with this lesson, revision of this lesson, Evans, XII and O-level. And we have completed the conversation when governor is taking special care when the exam has begun. And he is almost anxious. And every minute he is concerned, and after some time he reaches for his receiver and picks up the receiver and listens what is happening in the. Let's move where we left. Let's start from the point where we had left. This is the point where we left yesterday. The conversation between McCleary and Evans. And this was that in the top right hand, write your index number, and few instructions were given which we had covered up yesterday by the invigilator to the examinee, that is Evans. Right? And write your center number 271. All right. So this way, silence, and there was silence. Then 9:20 a.m. and all this conversation and all these dialogues are being heard by the governor through that receiver which has been placed in his room and connected to the McCleary. I'm now going to. He's not going to stay here, is he? Now Evans asked the examiner about the officer. I don't know about that, whether he's going to stay here or not, because if you're writing and someone stands on your head and nearby you, you cannot write your answers. Or you cannot do, you get distracted and someone is observing you keenly. So Stephens said, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Jackson has given me strict instructions too. Right? The dialogue or the conversation moves this way, that I cannot leave the room because Mr. Jackson has given me strict instructions to here. So the junior officer cannot deny the orders of the senior officer. How am I supposed to concentrate on my exam with someone breathing down my neck? Christ, sorry sir, I didn't mean that. But so he apologizes also for saying this, but he wants to say that the officer who's standing on my head must be removed from the room. The governor reached for the phone. Jackson, good. Get Stephens out of that cell. And the moment the governor listened to this, and he did a favor to Evans by removing, right, Stephens out of the cell, and he ordered Jackson. So he has his two very obedient people with him, those who are the prison officers, Jackson and Stephens, right? And as we have already discussed, one is the senior one and one is the junior one. So Jackson is the senior one, and good, get Stephens out of that cell, will you? I think we are perhaps overdoing the things. So here, what did he feel that they are doing? Overdoing the things. As you wish, sir. The governor heard the exchanges in the cell, heard the door clang once more, and heard McCleary announce that examination had begun at last. Now, as governor is listening to every conversation, everything, and he's also checking whether there is silence or not. So after the general instructions, he comes to know that Stephens is distracting his attention, so Jackson is ordered to remove Stephens from the cell. It was 9:25 a.m. and there was a great calm. 9:40 a.m. the examinations board rang through, and the assistant secretary with special responsibility for modern languages asked to speak to the governor. The prison phone rang, and the phone call was from assistant secretary of examinations, who had the special responsibility to take care of the examinations, those which used to deal with modern languages. He wanted to talk to the governor. The examination had already started, no doubt, a quarter an hour ago. Well, there was a correction slip which some fool had forgotten to place in the examination package. Very brief. Could the governor please? Yes, of course. I'll put you straight through Mr. Jackson and the governor made the stranger who has called in the name of correction slip talk to the officer, Mr. Jackson, and leaving. So there are lacunae, there are spaces, gaps after gaps, where anyone can plan any tricky thing to go out or run from the jail. They are doing a lot of things, but not functionally those things are coming. They are taking care of Evans in the best possible way and guarding him. but allowing the stranger to talk to Mr. Jackson and hold the line a minute. Was this the sort of thing the governor had feared? Now, governor had again few questions, few doubts in his mind. Was the phone call a fake, some signal, some secret message? But he could check on that immediately. He dialed the number of examinations board. He had the right to talk to the secretary people and the secretary of examinations and other responsible people of the examination board, but heard only the staccato beats. Could hear some electronic sounds of a line engaged. The line could not get connected, and then the line was engaged, wasn't it? Yes, not very intelligent. And he did not find out further. So the point here is, dear students, that they are either pretending to be very smart and intelligent, which they are not, and they are doing the things for the sake of doing. Whether those things are being functionally taking place or implemented or not, on the surface level, the things seem that it has been a strict arrangement. 2 minutes later, he heard some whispered communications in the cell, and then McCleary brought Scott's voice. A Scottish accent McCleary had. Will you please stop writing a wee while, Mr. Evans, and listen carefully? Candidates offering German 021 one should note the following correction. And when he picked up the receiver again to find out what is happening, he found out that some conversation is going on where Mr. Evans is being guided by McCleary, and the accent in which he's speaking is Scottish, Scott's voice. And the point is here that whether he was a Scottish person or not, or whatever, he was broad. It was very like artificial type of accent, we can say. Even then, they did not doubt McCleary whether he's a real McCleary. They did check him, but not as they should have or must have checked him, his identity and everything. So there was an announcement, one candidate and one examiner, one invigilator and announcement, which governor could listen through the speaker and that receiver. Candidates offering German 0211 should note the following correction on page 3, line 15. The fourth word should read golden and not golden and not golden, and the whole phrase will therefore be Zum golden lowen and Zum not Zum golden lowen. I will repeat that, and the instruction was repeated as in our exams. Sometimes the corrections they come. That question number this and this, it is not plus, but it is sign of multiplication or any. The governor listened and smiled. Now he was relaxed that everything is going on fine. The correction slip that had come, and he had taken German in the 6th form himself, and he remembered all about the agreements of a Jew. And so did McCleary by the sound of things, for the minister's pronunciation was most. What about Evans? He probably didn't know what an adjective was. The phone rang again. The magistrate's court. Once again, the prison phone rang. And it was from the court that they needed a prison man and a couple of prison officers. Remand case. And within 2 minutes, the governor was wondering whether that could be a hoax, whether that could be another false thing. He told himself not to be so silly. His imagination was beginning to run out. Now, rotten like. He was going negative, he reminded himself. But there is a point. At the same, he has some doubts, but why is he not working and clarifying those doubts? Evans, for the first quarter of an hour, Stephens had dutifully peered through the peephole at intervals of 1 minute or so. After that, every 2 minutes at 10:45 a.m., everything was still and all right as he looked through the peephole once more. It took 4 to 5 seconds, no more. What was the point? It was always more or less the same. Evans, his pen between his lips, sat staring straight in front of him towards the door, seeking, it seemed, some sorely needed inspiration from somewhere. For the first quarter of an hour, Stephens had beautifully peered, and he had looked into the window at intervals of 1 minute or so. After that, every 2 minutes, and it was 10:45 a.m. Everything was all right. And when he looked into the window, he found this examinee, this Evans, this pen in his mouth and thinking something hard to get some inspiration. He was not writing, he was just pretending as if he's thinking something to write. And opposite him, McLeary seated slightly askew from the table now, his face in semi-profile, his hair, as Stephens had noticed earlier, amateurishly clipped pretty closely to the skull. Now, as not as a professional, amateurishly as a beginner or not with expertise, but they were clipped his hair. So the hair also have a role to play here. If we note, Evans has asked, the examinee or these prison officers to keep that lucky charm with him, that bobble hat. There is a point that he wanted to hide his hair too. And here also the hair of this invigilator are closely, clipped pretty closely to the skull. His eyes behind the pebble lenses, peering short-sightedly at the church times. Now, when he looked into the peep window, he found that McLeary was reading the newspaper Church Times. His right index finger hooked beneath the narrow clerical collar, and fingers of the left hand and the nails meticulously manicured, slowly stroking the short black beard. And he was stroking his beard, and his hands, narrow fingers, left hand, the narrow clerical collar was being touched by him. At 10:50 a.m., the receiver crackled to life, and the governor realized that he had forgotten Evans for a minute. The governor, who was listening again and again through the receiver, all of a sudden realized that I should pick up my receiver and see. And when he picked up the receiver, he found, please sir, as the people, those who are taking exams, they asked in the last few moments, and give me a second, give me a minute. Would you mind if I put the blanket around me? Sorry, this was not the last minute, I'm sorry. Would you mind if I put a blanket around me? So he's pleading before, Evans is pleading before McLeary to give him the permission to, put a blanket around his shoulders. It is a bit pucky in here, isn't it? So pucky means very cold. There's one on me, on my bunk here, sir. Right? So he wanted to say there is a blanket on my bed bunk here, and sir, may I? So because it is very cold, be quick about it. And he also, as per the maybe his plan to hide himself, now bobble hat on his top, on his head, and blanket he has worn now from the bed. And at 10:51 a.m., Stephens was more than a little surprised. Stephens was surprised when he looked through the peep window that where has he gone, and he was in the blanket, and grey regulation blanket draped round Evan's shoulders. And he frowned slightly and looked at the examinee more closely. But Evans, the pen still between his teeth, was staring just as vacantly as before. And what was Stephens doing? What was this Evans doing? His pen in his mouth and thinking, and just vacantly as before, not writing, blankly beneath a blanket. Should Stephens report the slight irregularity? Now Stephens had a thought in his mind that should he go to the governor or Jackson and inform that the examinee is now or has covered himself with a blanket. So this is a very small thing and slight irregularity. Anything at all fishy? So the point here is, dear students, every time they had doubts, they thought of the situations in the right way, but they did not had, maybe they did not have the courage, or they were not in the senses that much to put those doubts into clarification or find out that yes, this is wrong and it should not be done. Every time the fishy doubts come in their mind that if Evans had been fishy or is fishy at this moment, anything at all fishy, And they had said to themselves every time, whether it was Stephens, Jackson, or the governor, that they are overdoing the things, they are little more. So anything at all fishy hadn't Jackson said. He looked through the peephole once again, and even as he did so, Evans pulled the dirty blanket more closely to himself. Now, when he looked again into it, Evans was trying to put that blanket more closely. Right, dear students? So again, was he planning a sudden Batman leap to suffocate McCleary in the blanket? Again, a doubtful question. What is he going to do? Then he said to himself, don't be mad. Don't be daft. There was never any sun on this side. So a question and answer. Doubt, and they themselves used to explain or convincingly, they used to answer themselves. Whenever a doubt came in their mind, they answered it, and convincingly they produced the another foolish thing. So there was never any sun on this side of the prison. So he said to himself, don't be mad, and he might be feeling cold, and that's why he had covered himself with the blanket. Dear children, we did this the summary of the story in a little bit manner on the first day. We started revising this lesson. We discussed that every time he's doing something fishy, which they get to know that is it something fishy, but it remains a mere question and a convincing answer from themselves, and they move on further. At 11:20 a.m., the receiver once more crackled across the silence of the governor's office, and McCleary informed Evans that only 5 minutes remained, and the examination that Evans was taking was about to get over. At 11:22 a.m., Jackson shouted along the corridor to Stephens. The governor wanted to speak with him. Hurry, man. Stephens picked up the phone apprehensively and listened to the rapidly spoken orders. Now, at 11:22, Jackson shouted along the corridor to Stephens to pick the phone. And when he picked the phone, it was from governor. Stephens personally was to make absolutely sure that the door was locked on Evans after McCleary had left the cell. Understood? So this way, Stephens himself was to accompany McCleary to the main gates. What was the order from the governor's side? Right? And it is given in a dialogue form. Understood? So Jackson informs Stephens that he himself is going to take care of McCleary and relieve him at the gate. Stephens himself, has to accompany McCleary to the main prison gates. Understood. At 11:25 a.m., the governor heard the final exchanges, and these final exchanges, dear students, McCleary, stop writing please. Put your sheets in order and see they're correctly numbered. As we get orders or instructions from our invigilators, tie your sheets complete. Now the time is for collection of the answer sheets. So scraping of chairs and tables is being heard by the governor. All this conversation is being listened, is being taken care through that receiver which has been put in the governor's room. Thank you very much, sir. All right. Was it like he wanted to ask? McCleary asked the prisoner Evans that was it fine? Not too bad. Good, Mr. Stephens. The governor heard the door clang for the last time, and the examination was over. I hope you are able to understand till here. Very good. How did he get on? Do you think? Asked Stephens as he walked beside McCleary to the main gates. Dear children, let me explain you a little bit that when one of this officer got the order, Stephens got the order from governor that you are going to leave McCleary to the main gates. When we see off people, we go properly, and this is a prison, so maybe a little longer way than the normal. So he went, and when he is going, he's asking, how did he get on? Do you think, as if he's so important? How did he do his exam? Asked Stephens as he walked beside McCleary to the main gates. I can't think he's distinguished himself. I'm afraid his Scotch accent seemed broader than ever. When, you can underline this line, when this man had come to the prison to do the duties of invigilation, His accent was broad. Now it is broader than ever. The normal accent of a person remains the same, and his long black overcoat reaching almost to his knees. This irregularity, if it is observed, why didn't they take care? Who is going? Who has come? Have the places been exchanged, the interchange of people? The one who has come is inside and the one who is leaving is someone else. The accent is changed, the coat is reaching the knees, fostered the illusion that he had suddenly grown slimmer, and also felt, Stephens also felt that he has grown slimmer. All of a sudden, in a couple of 2 hours, no one can grow slim. The person who has come, three irregularities or changes, still they did not do anything. Stephens felt pleased that the governor had asked him. He was only pleased in the self-obsessed in the thoughts that governor has given him importance. And the governor had asked him to take care of McLeary to the main gates and not Jackson, who is the senior officer. The junior officer is happy in this thing that the chief is giving me the importance. He's not worried about the man who is leaving and the man who is inside. And further, we see, to see McLeary off the premises, he has gone, and governor had asked him, he's pleased about that. And all in all, morning had gone pretty well, and the examination is done, and the morning has gone wonderful. But something stopped him from making his way directly to the canteen for a elated cup of coffee. He wanted to take just one look at Evans, that everything is fine and he's there. It was like a program he had seen on TV about a woman who could never really convince herself that she had locked the front door when she had gone to bed. Often she had got up 12, 15, sometimes 20 times to check the bolts. Now his condition was, Stephen's condition was like a woman who's psychologically worried, who is like into the habit, suffering from a psychological disorder of checking the doors again and again at night whether they are locked or not. So he wanted to check Evans, as he has been doing this duty for past 2 hours, peeping through the window or that peephole where he was looking at Evans taking his exam. So again he thought just a one look that everything is fine and he's there in his cell. He re-entered D-wing after leaving McLeary, made his way along to Evans' cell and opened the peephole once more. Oh no, Christ! Now these expressions and exclamations came out from him. No, there sprawled back in Evans' chair was a man. A semi-second Stephens thought it must be Evans. A grey regulation blanket slipping from his shoulders, the front, his closely cropped, irregularly tufted hair awash with fierce red blood which had dripped already through the small black bed. Now a bearded man who's sitting on the chair and who red blood has dripped already through that bed and was even now spreading horribly over the white clerical collar and down into the black clerical front. Stephens shouted wildly for Jackson. And now Stephens shouted for Jackson because now he thought that the person whom he has left out at the gate was Evans, and Evans has injured McLeary. Right? Now, Stephens shouted wildly for Jackson, and the words appeared to penetrate the curtain of blood that veiled McLeary's ears, for the minister's hand felt feebly for a handkerchief from his pocket. Now he wanted to take out the handkerchief from his pocket to wipe his blood, which is dripping. Held it to his bleeding head, the blood seeping slowly through the white linen handkerchief. Now there's a point in this handkerchief also. This was the handkerchief which was lying in the morning on Evans' bed, which was lying early in the morning on the bed, and now this hanky is with McLeary. Still they did not doubt. If they doubted, they did not do anything, and which is a point for the readers to pick up. Right, dear students? So, and held it to his bleeding head, the blood seeping slowly through the white linen. He gave a long moan and tried to speak. Now McCleary is injured, but his voice trailed away, and by the time Jackson had arrived and dispatched Stephens to ring the police and the ambulance, the handkerchief was sticky, squelchy, watch of dread. When something liquid is soaked by a cloth or a sponge, it becomes like a little spongy like. So the handkerchief was sticky and squelchy now, like a sponge of a watch of cloth. So this way, Stephens, when he wanted to go for a cup of coffee in the canteen, he went to D wing to check whether everything is all right. After leaving McCleary at the gate, he found injured McCleary sitting on a chair and speaking what? Didn't worry about the ambulance man. I'm all right. Get the police. I know where he. There he means where Evans. His closed eyes and another drip of blood splashed like a huge red raindrop on the wooden floor of the cell. His hand felt along the table, found the German question paper and grasped it tightly in his blood-stained hand. Get the governor. I know where Evans is. It's a little long lesson, but once we understand this lesson, it becomes very easy for us to answer all the. Almost immediately, sirens were sounding. Prison officers barked orders. Puzzled prisoners pushed their way along the corridors. There's a lot of hustle bustle in the prison. The officers were running from here and there. The phones were ringing. The doors were banged and they were banging and they were being bolted and phones were ringing everywhere. And within a minute, McCleary with Jackson and Stephens supporting him on the either side, his face now steeped and caked with drying blood, was greeted in the prison yard by the governor, perplexed and very serious. Bewildered and serious governor met McCleary. We must get you to the hospital immediately. I just don't. You have called the police, right? Yes, they are on their way, but I'm all right. I'm all right. Look here. Awkwardly, he opened the German question paper and thrust it before the governor's face. It's there. Do you see what I mean? The governor looked down and realized what McCleary was trying to tell him, that he has run away where a photocopied sheet had been carefully superimposed on the over the last page of the. Dear students, we have covered up this much. We'll continue from page number 83 tomorrow, the next class, right? And you know, what is there? The point that this McCleary and Evans are friends. Now, who has gone and who is injured? What Stephens had imbibed when he looked into the peephole at the last moment before going to the canteen. He did not even intervene who is sitting, who is looking, and covering the head with the cap and the blanket and everything, and bed and that rubber ring and the handkerchief, everything is the part of the plan. We'll complete the lesson in the next class, right? God bless you all. If you have any query, you can ask. You can note down some queries and you can ask in the classes whenever they are going on. Right? God bless you.